Hello YouTube, this is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about astral traveling, lucid dreaming, out-of-body experiences, shamanic traveling, and we're going to also take a look at interdimensional meditation and maybe see if we can come to some understanding about the differences between the two, what are the purposes, and of course I will be sharing my experiences. This is the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel where I give you practical tools to shift your physical body, your mind, your psyche, and your spirit to the next level. It is my belief, based on my experience, my intuition, and my experiences in these realms, astral traveling, lucid dreaming, shamanic journeying, and most recently what I refer to as interdimensional meditation. It is my belief based on these experiences that we are in fact going through a drastic evolutionary experience. I believe that it is very likely that there will be a complete dimensional shift for planet Earth and of course for human beings. So before we get into this, bear in mind this channel isn't about you listening to me talk. I'm glad if you come on here and all you do is listen to me talk. There's a lot of people that do that, but you're really not getting what you can get out of this channel. This channel is here to give you the tools. If you're either too cheap or you're too broke for whatever reason and you can't, come out with spare pocket change to subscribe or to support the channel in a financial way, there are, in fact, far more free practices on this channel. You can go to the playlists on the channel, the Qigong, the guided meditations. I mean, there's just no shortage of stuff, but you have to put the work in there to find it. So I recommend that you do that. Now, if you want targeted teaching on how to do what I'm going to be talking about today, which has a lot to do with shifting your body up. Specifically, what we're going to be focusing on is how these practices, when done correctly, can actually expand your physical capability of handling spiritual energy. This is extremely important because this is exactly what is going to happen when the human species shifts up to this next level, if you want to call it 5D, whatever it is. What is going to happen is that the nervous system and the meridian system and the organs of the body are going to have to be able to tolerate an expansion of an almost unbelievable immediate expansion of energy. And you won't be able to do that if you don't have the tools. Or at the very least, it'll be challenging if you don't have the tools. So take advantage of what this channel is. Warrior 90-Day Challenge, go and subscribe there. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe whenever you want. By the way, I made it easier to navigate. So when you subscribe, all you have to do, like let's say you subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong, all you have to do when after you've subscribed is there will be a little box there that will say Lightning Qigong. Just click on that and you'll have access to all of the phases, all 3 of the phases, and anything associated with Lightning Qigong, you'll see it. You won't have to go searching around. So I've made it easier for you. Courses.thunderwizard.com, all of my services, astrology readings, rune readings, all of my teachings, all of my courses, certifications, and of course my books. Interdimensional Revolution is my latest one. You can go to Michael William Denny, you see my name there, .com. That'll show you all of my books. And of course we are on Rumble, we're on BitChute, we are on Odyssey. But subscribe here because this is the channel that's most important for me to keep this thing going. All right, let's get back to the topic here. astral traveling, lucid dreaming, out-of-body experiences, shamanic traveling versus interdimensional meditation. What's the difference? So I'm not an expert in all of those things. I have had out-of-body experiences, but that is definitely something that takes a specific skill, and we'll talk about that. Why would you want to do out-of-body experience, like actual out-of-body experience, versus shamanic journeying, or in my case, interdimensional meditation? What would you want to do? Why would you need to do that? What are the pitfalls and limitations of each? I have done my share of shamanic journeying, and astral travel is kind of it's a term that can work with any one of those things, and pretty much anybody can say I astral travel. But there's ways to have these kinds of experiences while still staying physical in the body, while still staying connected to your physical body. And in fact, one may make the argument that you would want to stay conscious connected to your physical body while you do some of these practices. And I'll explain why that is. So first, let me just go through the list here. Astral traveling, I just talked about that. That is such a common phrase. I think for a lot of people, astral traveling means leaving the body, having your spirit up and walk out, turn around, see your physical body, and walk out the door. For some people, that's astral traveling. For other people, astral traveling could be a shamanic journey. It could be a guided meditation. And bear in mind, guided meditations, if you're imagining something, if you're imagining yourself experiencing something, you can pretty much be guaranteed that something is happening. Now, it is possible for your unconscious delusions to kick in. It is possible for you to get lost in your unconscious, which is a world in and of itself. This is what nightmares are. You want to know what a nightmare is? A nightmare is you being lost inside your own unconscious fears. And they could be, now we can start talking about lucid dreaming. So if we take the word lucid dreaming just by the name itself, it means to be in a dream state, but to be lucid, to be experiencing something that you believe you're actually experiencing. But the question is it? So if you have a lucid dream that you're walking around Paris, France, for example, does that mean that your astral body is walking around Paris, France? Might not mean that. So while every one of these things is valuable and can have some meaning to it and have some lessons to it, sometimes it's just you being wrapped up in your own deal. But bear in mind, your physical body isn't even real. What did I don't know the exact figures. I just saw this today, and of course, like many of the things, I look at it and then I don't write it down. But I just saw that when you look at an atom, if you go down that small to look at an atom, when you look at it in a textbook or something, you've got the atom and it's this big, and the nucleus is right here, and here's the atom. But actually, the nucleus of the atom is something like 100 million times smaller, than the actual, outline of the atom. In other words, it's completely empty space. The nucleus is this tiny little thing that's 100 million times smaller than the actual circumference of the atom itself. The atom, this microscopic thing. So that everything is, made up of atoms. Everything. It's all empty space. So you're not really physically here anyway. It's, as you know, as I've said many times, it's a three-dimensional projection. It's a three-dimensional holographic projection. It's not real. It's as real as, you know, a virtual reality program. You know, when you play a video game, there are rules within the video game, and you know, your character can be destroyed, your character can be empowered, but it's a non-existent idea that, you know, ones and zeros are putting together on a two-dimensional screen. But it doesn't change the fact that it follows, you know, certain laws. And same with you. Your physical body is this three-dimensional projection that has to follow certain laws so it can, quote, be damaged. But there's really nothing there. You know, pain is an experience. You know, it doesn't even exist. It's something your brain tells you exists. You know, so bottom line is that even though this three-dimensional projection is unreal, there is a reality to it. So the same is true for even if you tell me about some nightmare that you have. And I may say to you, you know, if you ask in the comments, I may say to you something like, that's your unconscious delusion. It doesn't mean that it wasn't a real experience for you. It just means that it was isolated in its own little world. And that's really the difference. You know, when we talk about whether or not somebody is sane, we're talking about, does your personal experience line up with, you know, the reality that you've chosen to be identified with, which is, you know, you've chosen to incarnate in three-dimensional Earth. And if your internal reality is so disconnected from all of that, we say that, you know, you're crazy because you're not connected to reality. So this is a good, why don't I stop here for a second, because, you know, what insane people will often do is they will justify their delusions, their psychotic break from reality. They will justify it by saying, you know, something that will sound very spiritual, like, well, I live in the real reality and this is the false one, therefore. And it really is a way of disconnecting you from other people and disconnecting you from your happiness. So again, let me go back to the basics. There's a three-rule basic thing which tells you whether or not you are in fact reality, and that even means spiritual reality. And those three things are you happy, are you healthy, and are you prosperous? Are you happy? That's obvious. I mean, you know, I've experienced a lot of things that, you know, would sound crazy to probably a lot of psychologists if I were to tell them about it, unless of course they'd experienced it. But you know, people who are trapped in delusions are usually very unhappy. They usually have a lot of fear, they have a lot of paranoia, they have a lot of anger, they have a lot of victim mentality, as well as feelings of superiority. They believe that they are being attacked. Those of you who I'm just telling you straight out, those of you who believe that demons and evil spirits are attacking you and possessing you, I'm telling you right off the bat, that is not a happy state. And we could argue back and forth whether or not you are being attacked by evil spirits, but whether you are or you aren't, you're not happy. And that right there means that you are out of sync, which includes not only being able to function in this 3D, in this 3D projection, but also being able to function with other people and function in such a way that your needs are met. That includes being happy. So if you're chronically unhappy, there's something out of balance that needs to be addressed. And this is part of the reason that all of these things are here. So happiness is something you have to have. And you know, if you're talking about all of these spiritual things and you don't have happiness, it's meaningless. I've talked to people over the years, even before I, expanded to where I am now, to my understanding of how things work. And there would be people who, looking back on it, were talking about things that might have had some validity in terms of were they experiencing something non-physical. But they were very unhappy. And that was the red flag for me. And I would say that to them. I remember there was one person I worked with for a while who would go into, these shamanic journeys, these astral travels, and he would get really lost in them. And he was incapable of functioning. He didn't function in the world. He didn't want to have a job. He didn't want to interact with people. And I said, I don't care whether this is real or not. You're operating from some severe emotional issues that you're using this practice to run away from. So, you're not happy. So happiness is the first one. So if you're not happy, stop justifying it. Happiness is the most important thing. The most spiritual achievement you can accomplish is happiness. People talk about Mother Teresa. She's passed away, but she was ubiquitous for so many years that even when she was alive, people would say, "Well, who are you, Mother Teresa?" Meaning, oh, she's going to go off and be Mother Teresa, meaning a super spiritual person that dedicates their life to other people. But the truth is that Mother Teresa was, as I understand it, was filled with depression and fear and was angry at God. That's not a happy person. So from my perspective, I don't care how many, people she gave, the homeless people that she helped, good for them. But if she leaves this world and she's not happy, she missed the whole point of it. The whole point of being here is to be happy. So if you're not happy, don't feel guilty, but do the work to get happy. I made that decision a long time ago. I made that decision that I was going to be happy. I was going to do whatever the hell it took for me to be happy. And I'm able to do that. It doesn't mean I don't have challenges. I do. I have the same challenges you have, trust me. But I know how to do the things that make me happy, and I know how to commit. If I'm not happy, I know how to commit towards a path of finding my happiness. So the first thing that you got to have in order to validate whatever you're doing is you got to be happy. Number 2, you have to be healthy. If your physical body is not healthy and you're, not dying of old age, there's something wrong. If your physical body is not functioning, there is some, at the very least, unconscious conflict that you are not working through that is resulting in your physical illness. So if you're not healthy, something's up. Some of the obvious ones, you're drinking and smoking, that's pretty obvious. But maybe, like some people, you're doing everything right and you still end up really sick and you're not, in your, my age or older. Once you get to my age, now you get a pass. I'm not giving myself one, but, people can. But so if you're not happy, if you're not healthy, and here's the biggest one. If you're not prosperous, what is prosperity? Prosperity is not money, because money doesn't exist. Money is an idea. That's all it will ever be. And prosperity is having resources. Having the resources that you need first and foremost for your own physical well-being, and then resources to be able to do the things that give you happiness. So I don't care how much money you have or you don't have. You need to be prosperous. So those are the 3 things that let you know if these practices you're doing are helping you. You're happy, healthy, and prosperous. Now that doesn't mean happy, healthy, and prosperous doesn't mean that you don't have challenging feelings. You could be filled with fear, you could be filled with anxiety, you could be filled with pain, sadness, anger. These are temporary states. And you can have these. They can come and they can go. You can have old issues that may take years to work through, especially, childhood issues. But this doesn't mean that you don't have negative feelings. You may have negative feelings, but when you look at it, are you filled with fear and anger? Yes. Are you, on the whole, are you doing things that make you happy more than before? Well, yeah, now that I think about it, I'm surfing more than I was before. Am I physically healthy? Actually, yes, my body is getting healthier all the time, even while I'm having all these feelings. Well, that means the feelings aren't lodging in your physical tissues anymore, causing you illness. They're making their way out. So you're feeling them as they're leaving, so you're healthier. Yeah, I've got all these feelings, but my business is going better. I'm more prosperous. I'm getting along better with people. People, have kinder things to say about me. They trust me more. So it's not about having feelings. It's about those three things. So I'm saying that because a lot of people use these spiritual techniques in an attempt to, on one level, to meet their spiritual needs, which is a perfectly valid reason. I do it myself. I get a lot of my needs met by doing these things. But if you're doing this and you don't got those three, something's off. All right, what were we talking about? So lucid dreaming is the process where you know that you're going to go to sleep and you're going to dream. So you're going to be in a dream state. So that's the thing. In dreams, we don't really know where you are. But you wake up in the dream and it is as real to you as anything else. And based on my experience with it, it doesn't guarantee that your lucid dream is taking place in an actual 3D physical location. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's happening in some place other than your unconscious. But it is possible that you are physically somewhere. In other words, it is possible that you're having an astral travel out-of-body experience while you're lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is one way that you could accomplish that. But as many times as not, you're going either into an alternate dimension that's not part of our 3D, or you're going into something within you. Bear in mind, you are infinite. There's a whole universe within you, so that doesn't delegitimize it. Astral traveling, lucid dreaming. Let's talk about out-of-body experiences. And I'm gonna treat this very literally. I'm gonna treat out-of-body experiences as though you have literally left your physical body. I'm gonna say the only difference between an out-of-body experience and somebody who's having a near-death experience is that there's still something connecting you to your physical body. So this is going to be important because a lot of out-of-body experiences include simply that, wandering around outside of your body. And an out-of-body experience doesn't necessarily mean meeting with higher dimensional beings or spirit beings or anything like that. In fact, for a lot of people, out-of-body experiences just mean that they walk around their apartment or their house, or they will their spirit to go someplace physically, and they'll check things out, and they'll come back later and they say, "Yeah, and I saw you were wearing a blue shirt with a whatever." "Oh my God, I was totally wearing that shirt that day." But that's one aspect. Out-of-body experiences, based on my research looking at people who really are experts in this, and as of yet I'm not. But the people who do out-of-body experiences regularly, and they meet with higher dimensional beings and get taken by higher dimensional beings, angels, spirit guides, whatever, in a positive way. By the way, I haven't even addressed all of the nonsense about having to protect yourself from evil spirits and all that. I'll get to that later, but just for now, just assume that's just not part of the equation, okay? That doesn't, by the way, that doesn't negate somebody having had an experience like that. Just for argument's sake, let's not deal with it for now. But when you have an actual out-of-body experience, that's not a lucid dream, that's not a guided meditation where you go into an altered state. It's an actual out-of-body experience that, you know, is you, your spirit, your soul, walking around in the 3D universe. When you interact with actual higher dimensional beings, when you interact with spirit guides or angels or whatever you want to call them, what ends up happening is that your soul, your spirit, has to expand to experience the communication. So this is important to understand. There's a delusion in the third dimension, which, by the way, is going to go away as we're shifting. It's already leaving. It's already changing. But let's go back to the old 3D. In the old 3D, the way things worked is you could pretty much say anything, and it didn't have to mean anything. People lie. People lie. They do these white lies, and these are lies that you tell people in order to look good in front of them. You know, you badmouth other people, you badmouth yourself. I'll give you an example. This is just a very meaningless example, but I was out surfing a couple weeks ago, and I was out there, and the waves were pretty much perfect for me in all ways. I was having a really great time. There was another guy out there, and, you know, every now and then you're sitting next to somebody, and so I started talking with him. And I said, I just wish it was a little bit bigger. And the truth is, I was saying that out of my insecurity. I was saying that out of wanting to, not knowing how to, you know, make a conversation with a stranger. And I just lapsed into the normal human thing of trying to make myself look good. So it was coming from a place of self-devaluation. But I said it, I physically said, I just wish it was a little bit bigger. So the surf report was saying that the surf was going to be about the same, maybe a little smaller the next day. So I went out the next day, and guess what? It was bigger. It was just a little bit bigger. And I had a great time, but had it been any bigger, it would have been too big for me. I mean, I was already at the level of, I don't know if I can tolerate it being any bigger than this. And it just dawned on me, it's because I said that. And I potentially put myself in a negative situation. And I recently had a communication in one of my interdimensional meditations where the gist of the communication was, what you say with your mouth is what's going to happen. So be careful of what you say. And, you know, there are so many people that unconsciously and habitually speak in ways that are not in alignment with who they are and what they want. But they don't think that their words have any real meaning to them. So the point is, in the old 3D, your words didn't have any energy to them. They didn't have any substance. In the spirit realm, you can't lie. This is one of the things I learned a long time ago. I learned it when I was 16 years old and I was doing exorcisms. And I learned that evil spirits can't lie. When you ask them their name, they can't lie. But humans can lie because they don't understand that their words have meaning, have power. This is why language has always been magical, especially as you go further back in the yugas. Satya Yuga, language is magic. Language creates. You know, even if it's telepathic language. So when you're out of your physical body, literally out of your physical body, and you are interacting with something that isn't part of your own unconscious, because in dreams, you're dealing with your own symbols of your own unconscious. Your own unconscious will manifest as your parent, or as God, or as your dead cat, or or somebody, or a stranger. Doesn't mean you're talking with a real person. You're probably talking with something that your unconscious mind has created to help you work through some issue. But when you're actually out of your physical body and you're interacting with an actual, real, spiritual being, when that being speaks, it will have power. And if they are a higher dimensional being, and even if they say to you, hello, there's far more meaning and density to that hello than if you're walking around in your physical and you're going, walking in the store and you say hello. It has almost no impact at all. But in the spirit world, every communication is filled with the power of the dimension that person is coming from. So what ends up happening is that your spirit takes these communications and it expands. So your spirit will expand if you're not connected to your body, and you may experience feelings and sensations and things like that. But then what happens when you come back into your body, after you've been walking around in an out-of-body experience, and you come back into your body, your nervous system wasn't with you. Your nervous system did not go on that journey with you. And so there's a possibility, that you could have a, near-death experience, an out-of-body experience. And if you receive too much information, you won't fit back in your body. You won't be able to get back in even if you want. So what ends up happening is, that's of course a very, very extreme, which by the way, there's fail-safes for that. The universe is not that, chaotic, so you have nothing to worry about. But what can happen is that when your spirit comes back into your body, your nervous system was not present for that communication. And so you ask your nervous system to expand to an energy that it's not prepared for. And so you can blow some circuits. You can harm yourself energetically. Your nervous system will have to adjust. And not to mention your brain. Your human brain is a 3D computer. And you've now input, 5-dimensional, really probably dense 5-dimensional knowledge into that. Your brain is going to have a problem, as well as your psyche. Your psyche is going to have some problems with that. So I learned this, again, I didn't realize it, but when I was training in the stuff I teach you here, the Warrior 90 Day, but especially this one, if you really want the most powerful practice to help expand your nervous system, to help you digest higher dimensional energies, the 5-element Mao Shan practice, the spirit fighting. When I was doing that, of course, I was training very hard. And what would happen is, as I'm doing the practices, I'd be filled with this, higher dimensional energy, which of course I was using for martial arts, this is why it was so amazing. You barely tap somebody, they fly across the room. You barely touch somebody and, all kinds of things happen. It's really great. And it feels very good. It feels good. It's just an amazing experience. But then you end up getting tired, like you do any exercise, but this is sort of like a spiritual tiredness, and you go to sleep and you sleep like a rock. Boom, you're out for 8 hours, 10 hours, and then you wake up and you can't move. I mean, you can barely move. It's like, ugh. And then I would have to breathe, get some chi into my nervous system, in my meridians, and then I could feel better again. But for long times, and sometimes I would train so hard that the meridians, because I didn't know how to ground, which is why I teach you how to ground. The meridians would literally sort of just kind of would short circuit, and I'd have a lot of physical pain. now I look back on it and I know what was happening is that, and my teacher would say, it's like going to the gym. You go to the gym and you lift weights, and you're sore the next day, and then your muscles grow, and then you're stronger, and then you can lift more. He says it's like this. You do this kind of energy work, and your energy body expands, but then your nervous system and your energy body has to be able to grow to handle that much energy. So you're going to be tired for a couple of days. And it's if you've already done the practices, you know what I'm talking about. So imagine that happening on a huge level. And again, this is why people should not be doing real out of body practices unless you've got some kind of energetic spiritual practice. The most powerful ones are the ones that I teach. Because the whole point, by the way, in case you guys didn't know, the whole point of the Maoshan practices was to be able to do out of body, so that you could leave your body at will. So if you want to get your body in shape for that, and you want to do out of body travel, and I'm saying this not just because I teach it, but because I don't know of anything literally that's better, I would recommend doing the Maoshan practices and doing the Celestial Qigong, which you can get celestialqigong.com. I'll write it here for you because some people misspell that. You can get celestialqigong.com. That is the basic practice of the lightning Qigong. You can do the lightning Qigong, but if you really want the most powerful stuff, it's the Maoshan 5-element practice. And I'm telling you this again from personal experience. And now I know, 30 years later, now I understand all the things my teachers were trying to tell me, even probably more than they understood. All right, so that's out of body experience. Again, the drawback of that, first off, it's not the easiest thing to do. It takes energy to be able to do that. So you have to have a surplus of spiritual energy to be able to do that, just to begin with. So you got to treat your body right. But then if you want to travel to other dimensions, to talk to higher dimensional beings, you're going to need to be able to have your nervous system handle that higher dimensional energy when you come back into your body. All right, so what about interdimensional meditation? So interdimensional meditation, this is a word that I've used for the main astral travel experience that I choose to do. It doesn't mean I don't do the other things. I do the lucid dreaming and the shamanic journeying, and I'm getting myself prepared to do some real out of body stuff again. But I'm starting to understand that interdimensional meditation has a very specific purpose, and it solves a lot of problems. Now, to let you know what I do, interdimensional meditation is the name that I created after I did CE5. So I recommend that everybody, if you don't know what it is, go Google CE5 protocol. And I recommend, instead of going online and getting, there's a lot of CE5 manuals out there. I don't recommend those for reason. I mean, you can, if you have them. It's not like it's going to hurt you, but there's some assumptions in there that aren't accurate, and they could be intrusive and not be helpful, hold you back a little bit. So I recommend that you get Dr. Greer, the guy who came up with that name, CE5. He's got a CE5 app. It looks like this. Okay. So, all right, CE5 Contact, I guess is what he calls it. And there's some guided meditations. Now, CE5 is really designed for you to have a visual experience. That's not entirely the purpose of it, but that's the main reason people do it. So CE5 is so that your physical 3D brain can go, holy crap, that thing flying around shouldn't be there. That's not a human. In fact, that looks like an orb. It looks like something from another dimension. I don't know what that is. That it starts the process of you being able to shift out of 3D. And for probably, I would say, the vast majority of 3D humans, that's the first thing that they need. For a couple reasons. Number one, if they were to experience higher dimensional beings and they'd probably lose their mind. They would short circuit their brain, their psyche wouldn't be able to, 3D psyche wouldn't be able to handle it, or they'd get frightened or whatever. But probably more so, they wouldn't even know, if a higher dimensional being showed up and wanted to shake hands, you wouldn't even know they were there. They could be talking to you, you wouldn't even know they were there. They could be flying around. This happened to me. They could literally be flying around in an orb, and your 3D brain would just refuse to see it. So you have to have something that is safe enough for your psyche, your brain, to be able to notice. Here's something else. This is as far as I know, this is a real thing, but I believe it was in Florida. The indigenous people of Florida, when the Spaniards and the British were colonizing North America, they would sail past without, places they hadn't colonized yet, they would sail past them in their big ships. And so the natives there would look out, and what they would see is they would see these ripples in the water. Their brain would not acknowledge the big giant ship. And it just wasn't part of their worldview. It just wasn't part of their consensus of what reality is. Big giant ships with sails was not something that they could comprehend. So they'd look out in the water and they could comprehend waves, but they'd see these waves and they'd be like, what is going on with the water? And they're completely clueless to the ships. And then finally somebody saw the ship for the first time. And of course it was like seeing a UFO for them. Flipped them out. He went and got everybody else and showed them how to see it. And then next thing you knew, they all saw the ship. And then it wasn't much longer before then, the Europeans landed and colonized that area. So there you go. So that's what CE5 is like for the average human. They're looking and they're seeing something that doesn't make sense. And they have been told that if you do this, extraterrestrial beings will show up in their spacecraft, even though it's probably not a spacecraft. It's probably just an effect, because a higher dimensional being is just sort of poking their finger into the third dimension, and it creates these orbs and other things that we think are spaceships when they're probably not. And what's happening at the same time is that those higher dimensional beings are connecting telepathically, and sometimes they're physically right there, just phased out. And if you're sensitive enough, you'll feel something, and if you start to meditate, you'll feel their energy, and you'll go, I think I communicated with an ET. And now what's happened is your mind and your psyche has expanded to be able to accept this reality. And then you can start having a relationship with higher dimensions. That's the whole point of CE5. So, I don't know where I got off on that. So, interdimensional meditation is something that I created. So I did CE5 until I had a successful experience, which you can all see if you go onto my channel and watch the video, how I became an extraterrestrial. You'll see what happened and how traumatic it was for me. And that opened up, that literally cracked me open energetically, and all kinds of things have been happening since then for, nonstop for a year. And then what I started to do is I didn't care about seeing orbs or spaceships or anything like that. Excuse me. In fact, from the beginning, I never cared about that. It's cool and interesting, but what I really wanted was I wanted higher dimensional beings, which I knew were the ascended masters. I knew that these were the beings who created the Maoshan practices, who created mantra, who created Kundalini yoga, who created, understanding of chakras. I already knew that these were higher dimensional beings of light. I just hadn't made the connection that they were actually extraterrestrial higher dimensional beings of light. Now that I made that connection, I said, the only thing I want from these beings is I want to learn higher, more occult spiritual practices. I want power. I want to go deeper and I want more power. And I felt guilty about it, but that's exactly what they gave me. They gave me exactly what I wanted. And so I started doing what I call interdimensional meditation. So the whole point of interdimensional meditation is not to travel outside of the body. It's not about physically going to other realms. It's about interacting. First, it's about interacting with higher dimensional teachers. And when you do interdimensional meditation, the way that I teach you, by the way, I'm perfectly happy if you're able to, have out-of-body experience or astral travel or whatever. It's not a limitation. But the way that I teach interdimensional meditation is that you're still physically in your body. You can still feel, the bed that you're lying on. You can still, scratch your forehead, if you have an itch. You're still connected to your physical body and your nervous system. But your astral body is off, interacting either in the room, you're interacting with their astral bodies, or maybe their physical phased out bodies. Or you've traveled with your astral body to other planets, to solar systems, to other realms, other dimensions, and you are interacting and you're communicating. Now, why this is a good thing is because you don't have the same problem that you have if you do an out-of-body experience and some being communicates to your spirit and your spirit expands with this, dense, higher dimensional information. And then when you come back into your body, you short out your nervous system, or you're really tired, or it's a real shock to the system. You don't have that problem. Because when you're doing interdimensional meditation, your nervous system, you have an energetic portal that is connecting directly to your physical body and your nervous system. You will feel the energy. You will feel it. And you most likely feel it in your heart center, but you might feel it in your entire body. Maybe one side of your body. Like for me, when one being showed up and gave me what they called an upgrade, my whole right side of my body was like on fire. I don't know why. For whatever reason, there was something about that being that, and I think it's because I still have, by the way, to this day, I still have, I don't quite hear 100% out of this ear because my ear's a little bit closed up. And I've come to find out that that's a higher dimensional, they've got me hooked up. So one of the reasons I have, in case you're wondering, one of the reasons I have more intense experiences than a lot of people is because I'm hooked up to their dimension, so that they're continuously downloading energies and stuff even as I go through my day. And I've come to realize that that's not what happens to everybody. So at first I thought that's what's going to happen to everybody. But no, that's what's happening to me for whatever reason. But when you do interdimensional meditation, you do have that. You have a portal, an energy portal that connects to your nervous system. And so you will, when they communicate to you, that energy will go into your nervous system and you'll be able to expand with it. It won't, you're still going to have to recover from it. You still may have emotional, psychological, and even some physical responses to it. Feeling tired or feeling emotional or feeling cranky or even feeling depressed for a couple of days. This is your body and your nervous system and your brain trying to expand into that higher dimensional energy. But it's happening in real time, as opposed to you going out there and then having to come back in your body and have your nervous system, have to deal with it instantaneously. So I don't believe that this is something that ever happened before. I could be wrong, but I think that until this period in history, by this period I mean the last couple of decades at maximum, human beings didn't have this ability to connect. Now, I learned something very interesting, which was that the rishis, these are the people who wrote down the Vedas. So we're talking thousands of years ago. These Vedic shamans would go into deep trance and meditation, and when they heard a mantra, according to one account of the most famous mantra, that at least the way I remember it, the Gayatri mantra, because I think it was Vishwamitra, the guy who downloaded the Gayatri mantra, that apparently he could hear in his right ear. He heard a vibration that came into his right ear, and that was where he was able to get that information. Now, that's been happening to me for over a year. It's happening right now. It's been 24/7. The only time that my ear fully opens up is when I'm on a plane and there's pressure change, and my ear will briefly open up, but then it will, and I know I'm getting a big download because my ear will start. Anyway, so I felt good about that I'm not the only one that had this. Apparently, this is something that ETs have been doing from the beginning when they've been teaching human beings spiritual practices. One of the things is that, your right ear will get, that's how they hook you up. They hook up through your right ear somehow. All right, so that's the basic thing. So going over it very quickly again, astral traveling can be anything, but it's your astral body leaving. It could be in a dream, it could be in a lucid dream, could be an actual out-of-body experience, could be any one of those things. Lucid dreaming is just that. You're having a dream that you experience as being real. More than likely, it is not a literal out-of-body experience, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't have meaning, because that's where you can learn a lot of things. In fact, Taoists who wanted to do things like be able to, like in the movies, climb over walls or, have, levitate, or they would do lucid dreaming, and they would teach themselves how to do it in lucid dreaming. And then once they mastered it in lucid dreaming, they were able to do it physically in the 3D. Because the idea is you understand that 3D is a dream. So you bring that dream into this dream. Let's see, out-of-body experience we already talked about. That's a whole other thing, which if I take it literally is a whole other deal, where you physically, your soul is out somewhere else, actually in other dimensions, or actually physically walking around 3D Earth. And then interdimensional meditation is specifically designed so that you interact with higher dimensional beings. And as I said, mine has shifted, whereas now, as you can tell by my videos, it's not just about interacting with higher dimensional ETs. Nowadays, the majority of what's happening is that I'm interacting with deities, which actually blows my mind. Because up until this time, if I talked about a deity, I would say that deities are energetic symbols of powers within you, which is true. And so I didn't really give them, autonomy. They were, you could still communicate with them, but I sort of saw them as, I didn't have a fixed feeling about it, to be honest with you. But, as I'm looking back on it, my feeling was that they were sort of like energetic archetypes in the universe that you could tap into. So when people would say, I don't worship a god, I'm like, I'm not worshiping a god. I'm plugging myself into an energy source. And, Shiva is this energy source, Mars has this energy source, but I didn't really see them as being autonomous beings like you and I. I now have a completely different view, that deities are everything that I just said they are, and they also are completely, totally self-aware. And so in my astral traveling now, I'm just going directly to the deities. And the great thing about working with them is that when they communicate to you, you get their energy. So if Pick your deity, Shiva, Kali, whoever. If you're doing it in an interdimensional meditation, when that being responds to you, and sometimes they don't use words, but if they respond to you in, telepathic words, that energy will go directly into your body and into your nervous system. So this is why I recommend interdimensional meditation over even these other things, because, lucid dreaming doesn't mean that you're going to have any experience. Astral travel doesn't mean you're going to have any experience. And out-of-body experiences by themselves, there's a lot of out-of-body experiences. You're not going to experience any other entities. You could just have this cool little adventure. But interdimensional meditation is specifically designed so that you connect to higher dimensions, and that those dimensions, the energies of those dimensions, the energies of those beings, and the energies of those deities are funneled directly into not only your spirit, because it goes to your spirit, but it goes also to your physical body, your brain, your nervous system. And that allows your body to evolve. So in order to shift up to 5D, we are going to have to evolve on the physical, biological, atomic DNA level. Your DNA is going to have to shift. And your DNA won't shift if the energy isn't applied directly to the physical body. So, this is, again, people have near-death experiences and don't come back. Their physical body doesn't hold any, nothing changes. But you get the benefits of all that. You come back into your body, and your body is getting this energy in real time, and the DNA is getting flipped on. So there's no doubt in my mind my DNA has shifted. No doubt in my mind. We already know that if you take two identical twins, and if they have different mindsets throughout their life, one person is positive and goes after what they want in life, their DNA will shift so that they'll be healthy. And then you'll have somebody else who'll be an identical twin, and if they have victim, studies have proven this. They have victim mentality. They're depressed. They don't do what they want in life. When you look at their DNA, the one with the negative mindset, their DNA will have been shifted so that they have some kind of congenital illness. They get cancer more easily. They get something else. So we already know that just by living life, evolution is a result of how people choose to live their life, and that goes directly into their offspring. So now you get to have the benefit of your biology shifting, so that when this higher dimensional shift comes, you might be a different species. You won't be Homo sapiens sapiens anymore. You'll be Homo sapiens 5D-ensis or whatever. Okay, so I think that's all I've got for today about this subject. I'm happy to take any questions. If you have a question, write the word question in all caps and then write your question. By the way, just to let you know, when you leave a comment in a video that's not a live stream, you don't have to write the word question or feeling in all caps. You don't have to do that. Comments are different. I look at all the comments. The live stream is different. I don't read all of the live stream unless it's a question or a feeling. All right, let's take a look and see who's here. All right, 2014.com question. Is there a link between multiple personality disorder and a person's relationship with their body and how they take care of it? Why? First, tell me, why are you asking me that question? What does that have to do with you? How does me answering that question, assuming I have an answer, how does that help you? And again, what does that have to do with what I'm talking about? I can tell when you've written a question before, or you've just come on and you haven't even listened to me, do the lecture. You just typed in some random question. That's what that looks like. So I'm not going to deny the question for you, but you have to tell me why you need to know that. Chien question. I have been practicing interdimensional meditation, and during the process, I tend to visualize through my heart, or if I should be visualizing through my mind instead. That is a strange question. Strangely worded question, but I get what you're trying to ask me. You're trying to ask me, should you visualize through your heart? Well, the heart is where your soul is. So one of the ways you know that you are having an interdimensional experience is you'll feel this expansive energy coming out of your heart. And that's where the higher dimensional energy of your soul comes in, is in the heart. So when the heart is expanding, it means that the soul is pulling energy from higher dimensions. You're really in love with somebody, you feel a strong heart connection. Your soul is pulling higher dimensional energy through your heart. So first off, before I answer that question, I don't care how you do it. I've told you, the specific process of the intent, but don't get bent out of shape about, physically. I don't give you any physical what to do or what not to do. Some people are very visual, some people aren't. I'm not visual. I'm very, kinetic. So when I'm out there, I'm really sort of trying to guess what is physically going on based on the feelings that I have. Physically, it's like I'm doing it by braille. You touch something enough, you create a picture. So my energy's interacting and it creates sort of a picture in my head, but I don't think that I'm seeing literally what's going on. I can hear and interact, telepathically and verbally. And I know that I'm, in the right track because, I will imagine what is being said to me and the energy inside of me will physically just... But you don't need to have that either. That's something that happens with me, and maybe that doesn't happen with everybody. Everybody's different. So the only thing that's important about interdimensional meditation is your intention when you do it, whatever experience you have, and then the after effects. So if you have let me give you an example. So let's say somebody goes and does interdimensional meditation and they get this imagination comes in their head, and they think they're talking to some being of light, and they can't tell if they're making it up. This is very common, and that's because it's a telepathic communication. So when you have a telepathic communication, it will feel like your brain is just fantasizing. Now, if you want it to work, you have to get involved in that, and that will oftentimes feel like you are creating a fantasy. So the thing to do is to go ahead with that and don't judge the experience. Just, don't be attached. This is really happening. It's not really happening. The more that you can tell yourself this is really happening, the more success you'll have. So, but let's just say somebody goes and they have an interdimensional experience and they start to think that, I think I'm talking to this light being, but it feels like I'm making it up. And one of the things that will happen is if you ask a question, you'll get an answer, and again, you might feel like I'm just making up this answer to this question. But as soon as you hear it, you'll go, what? Like you'll either go, okay, that just can't be real. That's just too unbelievable. Or you'll go, what? When I did a video about it, when I was talking to, this being that called himself the Father, who claimed to be the source of all of the gods, both him and a light being who called herself the Mother. As I was talking with this being, I could feel his power. And I asked him his name, and he gave me this name. He said, Tahunta. And I immediately thought that's nonsense. And then he gave me an alternate one. He said, Tarhunt. And I recognized that. I didn't know where I recognized it from, but I recognized it. And then, of course, I thought to myself, I'm making it up. And then he says, go look it up. And I did. And I was absolutely blown away. I didn't make that up. It couldn't have been something I made up. So you could have an experience where seemingly nothing happens and you think you just had this little fantasy experiment and you don't think anything of it. But then what will happen is over the next couple of days, whatever was said to you will start to impact you. Like it'll start to bother you. Like you've gotten a message when somebody says something to you and the next day you don't like it. You don't want that to be true. There's something about it that makes you uncomfortable. That's a sure sign you had a real communication. Because if somebody's in a deluded narcissistic state, which does happen, and deluded narcissistic people will imagine that they're talking with God, when really what's going on is that they are diving into their own delusions out of their own pain and their own fear. They will love everything that was said. There will be, or, this is the big thing, or they will be told something that is negative. So they will be criticized, abused, or they'll start criticizing and abusing somebody else. That's a sure sign you're lost in your own narcissistic delusion. If somebody goes and has an interaction with a higher dimensional being and they come back and say, that being told me I was a piece of shit, or that being told me that my brother deserves to die, that's a sign that you're either talking to a demon, but more than likely you're listening to your own unresolved issues. A higher dimensional being will never say anything negative about anybody, including you, and they will never badmouth any other being, period. If you go and ask an interdimensional being about, a serial killer, they won't say anything negative. They will say, that person was trying to understand this. That person was struggling with this question. They will always find a way to make you realize that you have empathy and that you can relate to that person. Higher dimensional beings will never say anything negative. It doesn't mean they won't say things that won't mess you up. For instance, when they tell you, you're whatever, you're the king of the universe or something. If they tell you something like that, that's gonna mess you up. You're not gonna know how to deal with that. But that's not a put down. And again, the delusional person, if you tell them they're king of the universe, they're gonna go, yeah, I knew that all along. And so now I'm gonna go lord it over everybody else. That's somebody who's not having a real experience. So that's a long answer to your question. If it's do whatever works. Don't overthink it. The thing to focus on again is the impact that it has on you afterwards. And one of the ways that is an indication that you actually had an interaction. Let's say you have an interaction and you come out of the meditation, you go, well, that was weird. I don't think that was anything. I think that was just me making it up. And then, as a couple days go by, you're thinking about it, and by day 3 or 4, you end up actually experiencing it as though, yeah, and then this being told me this. And you go, wait a second, I thought I didn't believe that. But my memory is acting as though it really happened. And I was really told that. That's another sign. So the impact of it, it takes some time. And what it is that you're expanding into it. And it takes your time for your spirit and your brain and your nervous system to expand into the message that you're being given. So those are some of my experiences. What else? 2014.Tom question. How should I respond to suicidal thoughts? I mean, do I really need to answer that question? How should you respond to suicidal thoughts? Isn't it obvious? Let's see, you have more. I never act or intend on it ever, but I hear them so often it's horrifying. So 2014.com, here's what I know about you. You don't have a therapist, right? 2014.com, you don't have a group of people that you go to and share your thoughts and your feelings with, right? 2014.com, you don't have a mentor or a teacher, right? 2014.com, you have never read my book, The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life, have you? .com, why haven't you taken action on almost every single video? I tell you that the only thing that matters in life is that you act towards what your soul wants, and you don't take action on your feelings. You take action on what you know is best for you. Why are you asking me a question you've already gotten the answer to? The answer to that question is because you're by yourself. You're not opening yourself up to another human being, and you're not doing any kind of work. Correct me if I'm wrong. So the answer to your question, number one, is how should you respond to suicidal thoughts? That according to you, you hear them so often it's horrifying? This is called, suicidal ideation. You get your ass to a therapist ASAP. You find a psychologist now. There's plenty of free mental health services online. Stop being so isolated in yourself and listening to your own mind all the time. Number two, get my book, The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. Learn how to determine what your soul desire is and take action on it. If you can't determine what your soul desire is, you can go to career.thunderwizard.com and you can get the video course. Again, here's my next conclusion about you, 2014.com, is you either don't have the money or you're not willing to pay the money. You're just somebody who comes on and watches my channel for free. Tell me if I'm wrong. It's not a put down. These are the kinds of things that people say who refuse to invest in themselves, who don't have the money either because their life is a mess or because, they just, they'd rather spend money on weed or video games than on things that'll serve them. You want to come onto my channel, listen to me, but you don't want to do the work you want. You hope it's just going to, by listening to me, something will change you. I'm willing for you to prove me wrong at any point. I don't need to be right about any of this. Maybe you are doing some of the practices. Maybe whatever. So first thing is you stop being a secret. You get yourself a therapist. If you have any kind of addictions, if you've ever smoked weed on a regular basis, if you've ever drank alcohol on a regular basis, ever done any kind of mind-altering chemicals on a regular basis, then you get yourself to the corresponding 12-step group. There's nothing more healing than 12-step. So get yourself to AA or NA or Marijuana Anonymous or I don't care. But bottom line is I keep in every single video. I'm not angry with you, but it's frustrating. In every single video, what do? I come on here and I tell people to get yourself in a 12-step program if you can. Work the steps with a sponsor. If you need it, get therapy. Do the practices. Have a consistent, disciplined practice. I offer them to you. And yet, how many people come onto the channel and don't follow any of my suggestions? And then you want to ask a bunch of questions. It's frustrating. I've given you the answer so many times. So get up off your ass and do one or all of them. Want me to tell it to you again? Get a therapist. Find a free one if you don't have any money. You can find them online. Go to a 12-step group. I don't care if you've only smoked pot once, go to Marijuana Anonymous. You got drunk twice, go to Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're having suicidal thoughts, I'm almost certain that you have an alcoholic or a drug addict in your family. Or you have an extremely dysfunctional home life, which qualifies you for Codependents Anonymous, Al-Anon, Adult Children of Alcoholics. I know for a fact, because you are so obsessed with suicide, that there's some major trauma from some serious dysfunction in your home life, which qualifies you for multiple 12-step groups. So stop screwing around. Get up off your ass and go get some help. Because if you sit there by yourself, it's not very likely that you're going to be able to overcome this problem on your own. All right. Glubwup, question. Is shamanic journeying more of a personal, introspective, mirror-like dimension within yourself to experience your own unconscious manifestations from a different perspective versus interdimensional meditation, which is more of an externalized connection in the beings above, blah, blah. Well, and then you say, looking for clarification when doing, all right, so right off the bat, you're way overthinking it. That's going to, just stop overthinking it. Shamanic journeying is shamanic journeying. You play drums, you find, shamanic, some, whatever his name, Harner. Harner is the guy who started the whole thing back in the 80s. You play, put some drum recordings, just some shamanic drums, and you allow that to put you in a trance, and you have the intention of meeting your spirit guide or traveling to, that's shamanic journey. Forget about all this intellectualization of what it is. That is the process of doing it. So if you want to learn shamanic journeying, you have to do shamanic journeying. Then you'll come to your own conclusions about it. Interdimensional meditation, I've given you a very specific path to do it. You can learn that on the guided channel. You can learn that in the 90-day challenge. But very simply what it is you just simply make the decision to imagine yourself whatever way you can, whether you can visualize it or not. I can't visualize very well, but I do my best. Imagine yourself leaving your body, floating up through the atmosphere, and once you get out of Earth's atmosphere, you ask, are there any light beings out here who want to interact with me? And then you might feel something, you might not, you might imagine something, you might not, but you ask, and then after you've spent enough time either getting a response or not getting a response, you fly back down into your body and you wait. And you stay in a meditative process and you wait for 10 minutes or half an hour or however long it takes for something to show up. And when something shows up, you'll feel it or not. And you just keep doing it. So it's like asking me, is lifting weights more about the intrinsic psychological perfection of the self, or is it more about being, it's just too much thinking. And it's important just to get into the practice. So just follow the instructions. You'll have whatever experience you'll have, and it'll mean whatever it means. All right, what else? You say, looking for clarification when doing these two practices to help me with focusing my intention. Yeah, I think you're trying too hard. You're overthinking everything. You're trying too hard. You don't need clarification. Clarification is what comes afterwards. Afterwards you go, oh, here are the differences between the two. And then you get to teach based on your experience. Experience is your greatest teacher. And I think it's also a good idea, I don't know if you are, but this is a note for everybody. If you want to be good at any of this stuff, stop smoking weed. Stop smoking weed. Stop drinking. If you can, stop drinking coffee and vaping, smoking cigarettes. Stop all of that garbage. Because those are ways of staying in your head, staying outside of your feelings. And you're going to have to be able to be connected to your body and your feelings, and those things will prevent that from happening. And I don't know if this is true for you, but your question is very similar to somebody who smokes a lot of weed. But you don't have to smoke weed to be stuck in your head. But being stuck in your head, by the way, I get stuck in my head too, so it's not nothing personal. But getting stuck in your head is about avoiding your feelings, and it's about feeling insecure and wanting to control everything. So if you want to be good at these things, you have to drop trying to control anything. You really have to just go with it. You have to be, willing to, have, an uncomfortable, maybe even frightening experience. But the fear is because you're not in control and you're experiencing something unknown. So you're not going to be able to figure it out ahead of time. All right. Nothing else? Okay, are we done for the day? I guess we're done. Anyway, I wish you guys all the best. Thank you so much for showing up. And again, what is this channel about? Everybody listening to me, are you doing any of the work? Do you have a daily practice? Because if you come on here and you don't have a daily practice, you're wasting 90% of what's going on in this video. And you're only hurting yourself. If you are doing a daily practice, are you doing one of the practices I have laid out for you? Are you subscribed to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong? You can unsubscribe whenever you want, but it gives you a targeted, and it gives you a clear, concise, you know exactly what to do from A to Z, and there's multiple levels. And it's extremely important, if you ever want to make any progress in anything, that in the beginning you have a structure that you have to follow. This is what teachers are about. Teachers are about keeping you in the structure. They're the authority figure that if you don't do your homework or if you don't go A through Z in order, the teacher's going to be upset with you. It just keeps you in there, and then once you get your own discipline, you learn how to do that on your own. So I give you a virtual experience of that. Of course, I'm not there to tell you, to scold you if you're not doing the work, but that's what this is there for. It is there to help you. When you do any of that, or if you do the Celestial Qigong, when you do that, then you can start mixing and matching and creating your own practice. It's really important that you do that. And again, I'm only responding because, again, the vast majority of the people who comment are people who are not subscribed, who I've never worked with, who don't have a practice, who only come on here because they're addicted to YouTube, and I happen to be the one guy that was on today, and they think talking to me and asking questions will accomplish something. The only thing that will accomplish things is if you do the work. And I can tell, I love questions from people who are doing the work. When you're doing the work, I can tell, and it makes me very happy because the thing that gives me joy, if you want to make me happy, here's how you can make me happy. If you do the practice, I've spent my whole life creating these things. I've spent my whole life synthesizing things and then finding ways to make them accessible to people through video. Because normally you can't learn these things through video. I've spent my life doing that. If I can tell that you've taken what I've given you and you are implementing on a daily basis, that will make me feel like what I'm doing is valuable. It'll make me feel like my life's work will have meaning. When you just come on here and all you do is talk, and you're obviously very hurt and in a deep amount of pain, and you're not doing any of the work, then I feel like I'm wasting my time. And that I don't like that feeling. I don't want to waste my time. So for those of you doing the work, I want to hear from you. And of course, every single person who's subscribed, to the Warrior 90 Day, obviously, I know and see you are all there. And I am very grateful to every single person who has subscribed, who's bought any of the services or done any of the free stuff. If you're doing any of the stuff, if you're doing it on a daily basis, I'm extremely grateful for all of you who are doing that. All right. Yes, and Scully, the Hypno Skull, does awaken the immortals every day. Even though I've given him I've given you other direction that I know you're not following. But I appreciate at least you're doing something very important. And just to let you know, every single person who has followed all of my suggestions to the letter consistently, every single one of them, their lives have gotten significantly better in every area. So you owe it to yourself If you think that there's something that I have of value, it's important that you follow my directions, follow my suggestions. There's no suggestion I give any of you that would ever be a waste of your time, guaranteed. Because if I don't know, I tell you, I don't know. And if I'm telling you, it means that I know what I'm talking about. Okay, that's it for me. I'm all done. Thanks for showing up. As always, if I've done or said anything that's been in any way hurtful or offensive, in any way that's hurt your feelings whatsoever, please know that it's coming from a desire to be helpful to you in any way. So that's it, guys. I wish you all the best. I love you all. Thanks for showing up. And if the solar flash doesn't come between now and tomorrow, I will probably see you tomorrow in a new video. Take care.